As billions of humans on planet Earth tonight welcome today's full solar eclipse, the world turns once again to a new day, towards the future. As our ancestor spirits linger in the wind, watching on as we go about our lives, we rise from our fears and disrobe from the illusions that have held our people back for thousands, perhaps countless numbers of years. Tonight is July 11th, 2010. Glad to be back with you. After 3 weeks, this facility has been closed down, but we are now back, and we have actually a lot of 3 weeks worth of news to consolidate and cover. We'll talk about the G20 protests that took place in Toronto, Canada. We'll also talk about some other developments with the oil rig. And there's more evidence that indicates that there is foul play involved in this particular situation, i.e. perhaps this potentially being a deliberate accident for the purpose of bringing in a global carbon tax, amongst other things controlling the world's oil supply. 503-288-4442, that's the number to call in tonight. We'll try to take as many phone calls as we can. But of course, we also have a lot of news and information to go through. I want to make one brief announcement tonight, and that is that we're going to have some new developments. We're going to have some new meetups. There's going to be a new center that I'm going to be opening up soon, and I'll give you information on that in the upcoming weeks. What we do have available is spaces for people that want to volunteer to help set up this center. And of course, my email is going to come on the screen every now and then, alex_ansary@hotmail.com. That is one of the many ways you can get a hold of me. So there's going to be a lot of developments coming up before the summer is actually over. Now, we got a lot of videos to cover tonight. There's a lot of concern about an evacuation coming of the Gulf states. We're talking about millions and millions of people. Now, Bill, if you can get the first graphic ready or the first track on the DVD, we're going to go through these swiftly. And this is one report. Bill, let's go with track number one. This is one report that we've heard about so far. There are other people also talking about the possibility of some sort of situation coming with the seaboard. Again, we're having a lot of chemicals being dispersed, corrects it, 9,500, and there's a lot of information that is being publicly released right now about how this damages wildlife, its effect on human bodies, and of course, we're seeing its effect on the crops throughout the Gulf. So, Bill, if you will, let's roll track one, and then we will return. All right, track one, Bill. That's the last track. Thank you.
Now, this latest information is our top story. Oil industry insider and CFR member predicts Gulf evacuation. And it says, buried in an article on the Gulf of Mexico scenario and predictions in the Washington Post, quotes Matthew Simons, founder and chairman emeritus of Simons and Company International. In response to a tropical storm brewing in the Caribbean, Simons says, quote, we're going to have to evacuate the Gulf states. Can you imagine evacuating 20 million people? This story is 80 times worse than I had thought.
Now keep rolling it. Let's go to the second track. We're going to go through a lot tonight.
Well, at night they're spraying, even though BP's denying it, we've seen them at night spraying chemicals on us. Basically, they use it like laboratory rats down here in Louisiana. They just experimenting with us. They don't have no long-term study on the effects of this stuff. But they continue to spray it because BP wants to provide an illusion that they're trying to really do something good, or there's not as much oil as the people think. BP, when BP's lying as soon as they open their mouth. I'm in constant contact with the shrimp boats out there because that's my business, and they're telling me that on certain days they'll make them all go tie in a certain spot, and it's full of oil when they leave, and then they hear the planes and the helicopters, and then when they go back the next morning, all the oil's gone. What happens is when the tide switches, the oil comes in. And then you see a lot of people having respiratory problems, crying eyes.
And there's a lot of reports of this as well. Now, Bill, to the next track, this is also important information that's key.
Military got here about 30 days ago. All my life, I couldn't figure out why all these foreign countries hated us so much. But if that's the way the military treats them when we send them out there, I can see why now. we've caught underage girls in military Humvees, and I reported it to a general I knew, and he straightened them out, though. But one thing, the military got straightened out. We ain't got no more problems with them. Our biggest problem is all the criminals that's on our streets. I moved here at 18 years old, so that's 33 years, and I never seen a rape. I never seen a murder. I never seen a shooting. Never seen nothing. In 33 years, I never locked my house before. My keys stay in my car. And now you gotta lock your house. They've had 2 rapes and a shooting in the last 3 weeks.
No, that's not where it ends. That's actually where it begins. Let's look at this report from the BBC. The mayor of a small town in Alabama, his name is Stan Wright, he says that people in his state are having a rough time. He claims that domestic violence went up 320%, and calls the police have also gone up 110% a day since the start of the spill, saying, quote, people are running around like chickens with their heads cut off. And this isn't the first time domestic violence rates have risen with natural disasters. After the Exxon oil spill in 1989, rates of alcoholism, suicide, and domestic violence all increased in towns affected by the spill. After Hurricane Andrew in Miami, spousal abuse calls to local helpline increased by 50%, and police reports of domestic violence went up 46% following the eruption of the Mount St. Helens volcano in 1980. Bill, let's go ahead and go to the next track, which would be track 4. This is a woman in Atlanta commenting on this particular story.
Not doing no.
July 9th, it is scorching hot in Atlanta. I was watching CNN last night on the oil spill crisis in the Gulf of Mexico, and there were 2 gentlemen that came on CNN that discussed how the oil spill has affected the entire fishing community in the Gulf of Mexico. They discussed how the oil spill has affected the psychology of people in the Gulf. They said that there has been an increase in domestic violence since this oil spill. Now, it's always bad to see an entire community that was once a thriving, rich community destroyed due to someone else's negligence. In this case, BP's negligence. Now, I can't imagine going through what those people are going through right now. I don't have children, so I can't imagine having to feed a child and don't know how I'm going to put food on the table for that child. But there are communities all over this country that has suffered the effects of poverty for generations. What these people are going through is basically short-term compared to what other communities in this country has gone through for years. I mean, there is a poverty rate in places like Chicago, places like Miami, places like Atlanta. Okay? Nobody cares about that. Only when these rich people are affected by poverty, that's when people want to care. Okay, no one should have to live in poverty, but the reality is there are a lot of people living in poverty right here in the United States of America, which is supposed to be the richest country in the world. Not anymore, trust me on that. The dollar is worthless. The dollar is worthless.
All right.
It's only 17 cents.
And that's exactly where we're going next.
That's how much.
And we have a couple reports on that. But before we get to that, she's making a very good point. I mean, there's reasons why some communities have issues like domestic violence and higher rates of rape and attacks on women and men attacking men. It's a symptom of a larger problem that most people aren't willing to address.